You don't indicate in the report whether Iran's terrorist activities increased or decreased in last year. Can you give us some indication on that? And what is the administration, or you in your advisory capacity of the administration, going to say to those critics who say, why should you be signing a nuclear agreement with Iran when they are a state sponsor of terrorism and could use sanctions relief to further their terrorist activities?
Right. The report doesn't necessarily talk about numbers of attacks that are either inspired by or supported by specific countries in all cases. I think it would be hard to make an exact calculus of the kinds of numbers that I think you're talking about with respect to Iran. But we continue to be very, very concerned about IRGC activity as well as proxies that act on behalf of Iran. We think it's essential that we pursue those negotiations. But that said, none of that implies that we will be, again, in any way taking our eye off the ball with respect to what Iran is doing as a supporter of terrorism. We have sanctions in place against Iran specifically related to the terrorism issue. That's not going to change. What I just said was what I said, which is we're not going to remove any of the sanctions that are related to terrorism because, again, those concerns persist.
Unclear. It does suggest in the report that Shiite militias tied to Iran in Iraq have, you've seen a kind of decrease or lessening of specific targeting of U.S. personnel on the ground. And I'm wondering if that's because you think that ISIL is the bigger enemy, or do you think that, that Iran has made more of a deliberate choice to, given the negotiations, given a little bit of an improving in relations, has decided to kind of look away from targeting the United States?
Again, I don't want to comment too much here, and I'd refer you back both to DOD and to my NEA colleagues here about the specifics of kind of what they see on the ground in Iraq in a military sense and why the Shiite militias may or may not be, taking action against our troops. It's the political situation there as well as the situation on the military situation on the ground is very complex.
The report cuts off in December. But I gather from media reports and from your remarks that there's nothing in Iran's activities since then that would ameliorate your concerns on this score, that this still is an ongoing concern of yours, including with their support to Assad.
We watch a variety of things, and certainly their support and their proxy support via Hezbollah to the Assad regime is of concern to us, yes. I think by any standard that you set, you can look at that and you can say that we have made progress. Have we done everything that can be done in order to push back on these groups? Clearly not.
How do you regard a spread in ISIS's influence, a spread in Iran's influence, rises in the numbers of attacks and fatalities? How do you regard that as a success? Where are we gaining ground instead of losing ground? Tell me where.
I mean, it's a very broad question, and again, it goes well beyond the questions that I'm engaged in with, which are specific to the terrorist quotient.
You keep talking about inputs, and I'm asking about the outputs, the outcomes.
Right. Well, again, I've answered the question. If that's not satisfactory, then we can have a conversation offline.
From your reporting,
yes,
is it fair to conclude from this very clear reporting that Iran worked to expand its exportation?
I will say that they're continuing their pursuit of these activities, and again, whether it's expanding, not expanding, that's a little harder to judge. But the point is, they're still doing it. We're still concerned.
Okay.